Daytona USA is a racing game developed by AM2 and originally released in arcades in 1994. The game was a massive success, and it still isn't hard to stumble upon working units at bowling alleys, campgrounds, and laundromats. Despite the fact arcades are all but dead in North America, it's a testament to just how popular and timeless the game truly is. The first home port would coincide with the surprise launch of the Sega Saturn in May of 1995. A Windows port of the Saturn version would be released a year later, but we'll be sticking with the console games for today's episode. Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition was released in 1996 and will be the second version featured in today's face-off. Championship Circuit Edition was developed by Sega's AM3 division and based off the Sega Rally Championship engine. A rare Netlink version was also released, allowing for network play over a standard phone line. This version also received a Windows port called Daytona USA Deluxe. The final version we'll be looking at is the Sega Dreamcast version, released near the end of the console's life cycle in 2001. In fact, it was actually called Daytona USA 2001 in Japan. Yet again, a new developer was at the helms, this time Genki of Tokyo Extreme Racer fame. An HD version was later released on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network, but we'll save those for another day. Daytona USA for the Sega Saturn is a decent approximation of the arcade original. The familiar 3 tracks are here and accounted for. 3-7 Speedway is a typical NASCAR-inspired oval with 3 distinct turns. Dinosaur Canyon is a road course with left and right turns and exaggerated elevation changes. The lap count is reduced to 4 and just 20 opponents participate rather than 40. Finally, there is Seaside Street Galaxy, which is a street circuit. Being the expert course, this one provides the most challenge, with a ton of different turns to memorize. The game changes things up again with just 2 laps, but 30 opponents. Championship Circuit Edition includes everything from the first Saturn release, but adds 2 new tracks. National Park is another road course. The length is similar to Dinosaur Canyon, but much less technical. Desert City is a bit longer and tougher, but I don't find the track all that appealing. The roadside details lack charm, and the track itself lacks the flow of the original arcade courses. Daytona USA 2001 for the Dreamcast includes the original 3 circuits, the 2 introduced in Championship Circuit Edition, along with 3 all-new ones. Circuit Pixie is another stock car-inspired oval course. If you preferred the original 7 Speedway, you'll feel right at home here. Next is Rin Rin Rink, a road course with a bit of an industrial flair, though the actual layout is fairly pedestrian. Finally, there is Mermaid Lake. Of all the extra courses added in Championship Circuit Edition and 2001, this is my favorite. The wide bank turns, tunnels, and elevation changes really capture the spirit of the original game and is a welcome addition to the series. For me, the most iconic thing in Daytona USA is the amazing soundtrack. Sega had a knack for terrific music in its games, and they really hit their stride with their mid-90s arcade games. This is captured perfectly in the first Saturn version. Let's Go Away is so over the top it's impossible not to fall in love with. The King of Speed is no slouch either, with an awesome dance vibe combined with more epic vocals. Wrapping things up is Sky High. Again, the song is so off the wall it's impossible not to enjoy. The smooth vocals, upbeat tempo, and an emphasis on horns is every bit as enjoyable as the other tracks. Finally, there is the Game Over jingle, which happily uses the letters found in the word Game Over, while said letters dance around. It's absolutely brilliant. Championship Circuit Edition takes all the nonsense found in the arcade game and tones it way down. Most of the vocals are completely gone, along with the charm. The tracks are modernized with more rock or dance-inspired sounds lacking any real soul. I don't have much else to say about it. It's a downgrade in every way. 2001 restores the insanity with lightly updated versions of the classic tracks and all the vocals intact. I honestly don't hear a huge difference overall, though 2001 seems to have more piano notes than the original. I could be wrong though. The Dreamcast version is actually packed with music, featuring remixed tunes when selecting reversed or mirrored modes of each circuit. Overall, the Dreamcast version is probably the best, with good renditions of the original classics and plenty of extra music tossed in to keep hardcore fans satisfied. The original Saturn release sounds the most accurate to the arcade machine, and one could argue it's superior because of it. Championship Circuit Edition is the worst. Taken on its own, the soundtrack is solid, but it just can't hold a candle to the classic tunes. Graphically, the first Daytona USA is not a showstopper by any stretch. The biggest offense is the pop-up. Trackside details pop in extremely late, as do giant sections of the track itself. Still, Daytona USA isn't a bad-looking game by any stretch. The cars look good for the period, and the texture work is solid. Most importantly, the game is filled with bright primary colors that really leap off the screen. Championship Circuit Edition is a redo of sorts for the Saturn. Using the Sega Rally Championship engine, AM3 was able to increase the frame rate from 20 frames per second to a steady 30. Texture work is improved, as is the draw distance. However, Championship Circuit Edition looks somewhat strange. The car models seem like a downgrade, looking more realistic and less exaggerated. I miss seeing the rear tires stick out from the bodywork. Colors are changed as well, and the game has a distinct oversaturated look to it. I honestly can't say it's an improvement. Championship Circuit Edition is just different. After playing the Saturn games, 2001 looks insane. The 480p graphics are razor sharp, the frame rate is locked at 60, and the game looks gorgeous. Everything I remember from the arcade game is intact, only better. The enormous rear tires are back, the colors look spot on, and every building, sign, and set piece is faithfully recreated. The camera is improved as well, allowing you to see more of the track. The shadows are more advanced, and there are light reflections from the sun. The cars even feature transparent windows. It's honestly just a wonderful improvement over the original in nearly every way. Finally, we come to the most important part of this face-off, the controls. For the most part, Daytona USA is a game that has mostly eluded me. I can never tell if the game wants me to attempt to drift, brake before turns and stick with grip, or combine both playstyles. The controls have simply never really clicked with me. That said, surprisingly, I find the first Saturn game to have the best controls. Even limited to the D-pad input, the car is responsive, and I can feel when the tires are about to lose grip, and predict when a drift will end and allow me to move forward. Despite being one of the first 3D racing games released in America, the controls have some depth to them, and I find the gameplay satisfying overall. Championship Circuit Edition again feels different. Considering this is a different code base, it is expected. The game requires a bit more finesse with the brakes, and I am still not comfortable with the sliding, but overall, it's very playable. Championship Circuit Edition also supports the analog stick from the 3D controller, though I prefer the D-pad. I did have some issues with the sporadic AI, however. Opponents seem to veer all over the track too frequently, occasionally ruining your lap. It's not a deal breaker, but I still find the game strange at times. This leads us to Daytona USA 2001. First, you have to turn the sensitivity all the way down or the game is completely unplayable. After making this change, the game is playable, but it's honestly the worst of the three. The traction, the drifting, the brakes, it all feels off. Whether you choose a high grip car, a low grip car, or change around the tires, the controls never feel natural. Course memorization helps, but there is always a looming unpredictability to really stop you from going all out. It really pulls me out of the game, and I find myself slamming into walls way too often. This is far from the worst handling racing game I've ever played, but I can't help feeling disappointed each time I play it. With that, I find Championship Circuit Edition to be the worst overall of the three. Don't get me wrong, this is a good game. The frame rate is smooth, the graphics look nice for a Saturn game, but I've always found the second Daytona USA to be somewhat lacking. I don't like how they oversaturated the textures, and I find the mellowed soundtrack to be a step in the wrong direction. I appreciate the new circuits, the extra cars, time attack mode, and even two-player split screen, but when I want to play Daytona USA, Championship Circuit Edition offers the least authentic experience and is the last one I reach for. In second place is Daytona USA 2001. This game should be the hands-down winner. The game is breathtaking, the soundtrack rocks, and the amount of options available are endless. You can change the amount of laps, the amount of opponents, race mirrored and reversed copies of each circuit, even change car colors. On top of that, there's a whopping 8 tracks to race on. Unfortunately, the controls are sloppy. I bought this game brand new in 2001 and have played it off and on ever since, but no matter how hard I try, I just cannot get into it. The inconsistencies with the grip prevent me from being fully immersed in the experience. This leaves us with the very first Daytona USA for the Sega Saturn. On paper, this is the worst of the bunch. The game looks rushed with a subpar frame rate, terrible draw distances, and a lack of options. There are a couple of unlockable cars, but that's it. Thankfully, that's all it needs to be. The presentation feels accurate to the arcade game, from the start your engine splash screen, the car selection, the colors chosen for the textures, the subtle damage effects, the way the car vibrates, it all feels right. Most importantly, the controls are superior to the other versions. The drifting feels the most controllable and predictable, and because of it, I can get vastly quicker laps more consistently. The original Daytona USA may not be the best looking game of this trio, but delivers the goods where it counts. It's an absolute blast to play, and easily the best.